Alright, hello everybody, my name is Akoni Refutation. I'm here to respond to the claim that Henry made about cults are harmful to society. His secondary claims were that being in a cult puts the whole health of its members at risk, and that cults are offensive to other people. But tonight I'll be presenting the counterclaim that not all cults are harmful to society. First off, I'd like to state Henry's definition of a cult. He said that the broadest definition of a cult is regarded by the majority culture as spurious and unorthodox. It is also defined, as a system of extreme devotion to work, object, or person. Spurious means false or illegitimate, and unorthodox means untraditional. So through this definition, he inferred that society believes that cults are untraditional and false, also inferring that any religion is a cult. Two examples that I have here of cults that are unorthodox but not harmful to society are Unitarian Universalism and Freemasonry. Unitarian Universalism is a religious association of Christian origin that has no official creed and that considers God to be unipersonal, salvation to be granted to the entire human race, and reason and conscience to be the criteria for belief and practice. An example of why it's not harmful to society is, according to Gale Opposing Viewpoints database, the largest Unitarian Universalism group, called the Unitarian Universalist Association, is a liberal religious organization that has actively supported equal rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people since 1961. Equality, liberty, and the acceptance of one another are a couple of ideas that they promote and preach. Freemasonry is a secret society for men which declares itself to be based on brotherly love, faith, and charity. An example of why it's not harmful to society was stated in an article on the Grand Lodge of Michigan titled Freemasonry Explained. Described what Freemasonry is and who Freemasons are. Freemasons are men who have decided they like to feel good about themselves and others. They care about the future as well as the past and do what they can, both alone and with others, to make the future good for everyone. To note, both groups host philanthropic events, give away scholarships, and believe in a greater good. Secondly, now that you are aware of a few cults that are not harmful to society and actually strive to create a positive environment, I would like to address Henry's second point that cult members have traditionally been characterized as psychologically imbalanced, unintelligent, uneducated, easily led, blinded by faith, or manipulated by their leaders. A quote I'd like to present to you all from Harvard graduate and Unitarian parish minister James Luther Adams, who is also one of the most influential theologians of the 20th century, according to notable Unitarians, a database published by Harvard University. He was quoted saying, "The prophetic liberal church," referencing the UUA, is the church in which all members share the common responsibility to foresee the consequences of human behavior, both individual and institutional, with the intention of making history in place of being merely pushed around by it. Basically saying that Unitarian Universalists are guided by their own beliefs, advocate for causes greater than themselves, and are proactive rather than reactive in these situations. Examples of these are within the Unitarian Universalist Association, as its congregations or assembled body advocate for economic, environmental, immigration, reproductive, and international social justice, LGBT, welcome and equality, multiculturalism, peace, and religious and civil liberties. Now, according to the Grand Lodge of Michigan, Freemasonry believes education is key. Freemasons supported legislation to make education universal, have given millions of dollars in scholarships each year, and also volunteered time to their local schools, but buy classroom supplies for teachers, help with literacy programs, and do everything they can to assure that each person, adult or child, has the best educational opportunities possible. The article adds, no one has the right to tell another person what he or she thinks or believes. Each man and woman has an absolute right to intellectual, spiritual, economic, and political freedom. That is a right given by God, not man. All tyranny in every form is illegitimate. As you can see, such congregations are educated, intelligent, active, and democratic. To conclude, I do not give you one example, but multiple that are relevant and ones that will leave you with an open-minded perspective that not all cults are harmful to society. Thank you.
All right, you label the main and secondary claims pretty clearly, and you're basically challenging the advocate's generalization. You're making the claim that they are making a sweeping generalization, and that by providing substantial exceptions, you can show that the generalization is not a valid one. I think you do a good job showing that, for instance, that there are exceptions, but you need to remind us how it is that the two examples that you show fit the criteria of a cult. You used the definition that the advocate came up with, but you need to show us, for instance, how the UUA, for example, meets those criteria that you mentioned are cult-like from the very beginning, or how the Freemasons do the same sort of thing, that they are unconventional, or that they have these weird characteristics that are out of the mainstream, so on and so forth. I think that it would be easy for you to find some information that other groups have defined them or described them as cult-like. For example, there may be Christian organizations that have said the UUA is, basically on our cult watch. We have problems with them because they reject certain principles of the more general religions. Or, the Freemasons, there's been suspicion about them for centuries because they are secretive and so on and so forth, and that's one of the characteristics of a cult. But they're not necessarily a destructive cult. And then the idea here that you're undermining the generalization, I think, is supported with your two examples. I'm not sure why you see a difference in the first point and the second point. You basically are making the same kind of argument that both of these have significant exceptions to the generalization that the advocate is presenting. I think you need a little bit more analysis of the advocate's evidence and reasoning, too. For instance, did they provide sufficient cases of cults to show that they are, in fact, harmful? You never talked about any of the examples that the advocate used in supporting their position. You never tried to contextualize it and then go the opposite direction and say, they're making a hasty generalization from this. There might be some group, for example, that tracks cults, and there might be thousands of cults, for example, in the United States, only 3 or 4 of which are identifiable as dangerous or problematic. The rest might be innocuous, like the UUA or the Freemasons, for instance. I do remember, wasn't there one cult where there was, they set loose some sarin gas in the subway system in Japan or something like that. But I'm not sure how frequently that kind of behavior represents the cults that we're talking about here. I don't remember if he talked about the Waco David Capel group or not. That's just something that's popping into my head. I don't know that it was part of his argument. But in essence, I think you need to kind of come to grips with his evidence as well as presenting some counter evidence. All right, thank you.